Okay, welcome everyone. I think we're going to get started soon. Before we begin, we have the Minister of Education here would like to read a message. Would you like to? Okay. Yeah. From here? Sure, or you can come up here if you, yeah.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Dear Dr. White, on behalf of the Minister of Science and Higher Education of Republic of Kazakhstan and the personnel from Minister Syed Nurбек, I would like to extend his sincere congratulations on your publication of your book, Rediscovery of Lost History of Central Asia Christianity, Historical Context and Archaeological Evidence, and on occasion of presentation at Nazarbayev University here today. This research addresses a dimension of Kazakhstan history that has long remained outside the mainstream of scholarly attention. The archaeological evidence you present, Dr. White, documented pre-Islamic Christian communities on the territory as early as the 6th century, including the rediscovery of lost Silk Road city, enriches our collective understanding of civilizational depth of Central Asia. History of this as a significance deserves to be known. Thank you very much, Dr. White, with sincere respect and best wishes for continued success of your research, Minister Syed Nurбek. Thank you very much.
Well, we have an excellent audience today. Thank you all for coming. I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Kevin White, who's come to present his book today. Kevin White received his PhD in religious studies from the University of Salzburg in 2024. He's currently a visiting scholar at Nazarbayev University and research fellow for ZECO, Zentrum zur Erforschung des Christlichen Ostens, or Center for Eastern Christian Studies at Salzburg. And so in this capacity, with ZECO, Kevin is developing the Central Asian Center for Syriac Studies, formerly the Department of Nestorian Studies, to serve as a field-based platform to facilitate research and development of this field, mapping and implementing archaeological engagement strategies and the development of geoinformatics related to the historical and socio-religious geography of Central Asia. So this is a really quickly growing field, and we're very fortunate to have Dr. White explain his research here at NU. So he's going to present some of his research, and then after that I think we'll have time for some discussion. So Kevin, please. Here, just take this one.
It's a pleasure to be back at Nazarbayev University. Thank you for hosting me. This truly is an extraordinary lost chapter of Kazakhstan's history and Central Asian history. It actually does exist, and I'm happy to represent a team of many people who have done great work in this field, including the prominent Kazakh archaeologist Karol Baypakov, who I had the opportunity of working very closely with till he passed. And he is one of the most foremost people who brought out this evidence. And a lot of this research is based on his work and others like him. And so let us begin. Thank you for hosting me. It's a pleasure to be here. By the way, at the end, if you are interested in buying a copy of the research project, this is a copy here, but there's brochures here for a 40% discount, and I would recommend that because the publisher charges a lot on this, and so be sure to get a brochure if you'd like to have a copy. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony. It is our honor to dedicate this to the Nazarbayev University Library at the end of this presentation. And again, we'll have time for questions and answers at that time too. So Kazakhstan, the Sacred Kazakhstan course ahead Towards the Future, Modernization of Kazakhstan Identity, Madini Mura, and Turganjir are all dedicated to the preservation and research of Kazakhstan's sacred cultural heritage. And this demonstrates the progressive spirit of Kazakhstan. It's exciting to see. In 2014, a farmer in East Kazakhstan discovered a stone which featured a Syriac script surrounding a cross. Not knowing what it was, he took it to use it for a foundation stone for his barn, for his animals. And then he turned it in, notified the school, who notified the Academy of Sciences, and they were able to do a digital analysis of the stone and a subsequent Turkic language inscription in Syriac script, which turned out to be a Christian gravestone, the son of a Christian priest. This discussion will describe the Ilibalyk discoveries and other discoveries of East Syriac Christianity or Syro-Aramaic Christianity in Central Asia and Kazakhstan. Mostly on Kazakhstan is what we'll discuss. This is Dr. Karl Baypakov on the far right, Christoph Baumer on the far left, the director of the Society for Exploration of Eurasia and a key sponsor of these discoveries. And in the middle, I think you Nazarbayev University people know Zhetysu Tashmambetova, now completing her PhD. She was very instrumental in getting this collaboration started, and it'll be exciting that she comes back to Kazakhstan. So how did Christianity get to Kazakhstan? Well, obviously there's a relationship on the Silk Road infrastructure that led to the spread of ideas, of economic exchange, but also of ideas and religions. It is interesting to discuss that the 5 of the 12 apostles, Thomas, Bartholomew, Jude, with Judas Thaddeus, that is, Andrew and Matthew went to the east. Thomas, according to Hippolytus, writing in the 3rd century, wrote that he preached to the Parthians, Medes, Persians, and the Bactrians, which is in our territory. Collaborating with this account, Thomas of Cana in 345 Common Era, and a bishop led Persian Christians fleeing persecutions to India, where they found already thriving Christian communities. Cosmos Indioplatius, also writing in the 6th century, confirms this as well. Pataeus, in 189, he was the first teacher of the School of Alexandria and educator of Clement, recorded Christians in India, as well as a copy of the Gospel of Matthew having been provided to them by the Apostle Bartholomew. In 189, he records this. Edessa is an Eastern Christian base, basically, from which Christianity spread into Central Asia. Eusebius, writing in 324, describes how that Thomas sent a disciple, Thaddeus and Adai, and he sent him to heal the Edessan king, Abgar I. While the account is shrouded in legend and ambiguous in some regards, nonetheless, there was a large-scale conversion of the Edessan population. And from early accounts, including the Acts of Mari, Doctrine of Adai, 2 of his disciples, Agai and Maris, set out to teach Christianity further east. According to the Doctrine of Apostles, dated mid-3rd century, the Galileans, Gog and Magog, received an ecclesiastical ordination by Agai around the early 2nd century. According to Mangana, Gog and Magog correspond to Proto-Turkic and Tatar tribes in Syriac literature. Very interesting. The Acts of Mari talked about confirms also 6th century written that Mari evangelized Persia. So Bardasian was a writer, and in his book, of the Law of Countries, circa 196 Common Era, makes reference to existence of populations of Christians in the Kushan Empire, describing their virtuous lifestyles. The Kushan Empire in the 2nd, 3rd centuries would have included Bactria, Sogdiana, and northern India. So this would be very close into our realms of what later became Khorasan. Bartholomew and Thaddeus, according to tradition, brought Christianity to Armenia in the 1st century. They were the ones who were considered the first illuminators, even though Christianity was confirmed by later the conversion of the king by Saint Gregor, the king Tiridates III in 301. There's certainly strong evidence of Christianity before then that could confirm Bartholomew and Thaddeus, namely the persecution of Christians by Oxydares in 113, the accounts of Khosrow in 212 and 217. Tertullian in 220 records the presence of Christianity in 220 as well. And Eusebius describes a letter from Dionysius of Alexandria to a bishop named Marazones in Armenia in 264. So there's credible accounts to this. Before I talk about this, I want to describe the history of Barshaba. Barshaba is Syriac for son of deportation. He was a descendant of populations deported from Syriac realms when Shapur had invaded Rome. Residing in Seleucia Ctesiphon, capital of the Persian Empire, during the reign of Shapur II in the 4th century, Barshaba was renowned for his ability to heal. After healing one of the wives of Shapur II, he also healed the wife's sister of Shapur II. Her name was Shirin. Because of her conversion to Christianity, she began to proselytize Christianity in the Persian capital. The king exiled her to Merv, Mari Turkmenistan, to keep her from influencing others and to isolate her from Christians. And according to the Chronicle of Sirt and in Merv, she converted many to Christianity and even requisitioned the building of a large church, employing the same architectural design as the Persian capital, even naming it Ctesiphon. Shirin petitioned her king, her husband, to appoint Barshaba to be Merv's first bishop in 334. According to the Chronicle of Sirt, Barshaba spread Christianity throughout Khorasan. This is the Barshaba fragment. The Chronicle of Sirt, an Arabic 8th, 9th century document. This is a 7th century document that was discovered in the collection discovered by Ariel Stein and Lecoq in the Turfan region in the early 20th century, late 19th century. The Barshaba fragment is the best document of the Turfan collection, and there was 1,100 Christian documents discovered in that collection. It confirms the same account and may be the original source of the Chronicle of Sirt. We're uncertain about that. But according to the Barshaba fragment, written in Syriac, he spread Christianity throughout all of Khorasan, building churches, and spread Christianity to the distant realms. And leading credibility to the account of the conversions of Merv, Merv was listed as a metropolitan status, meaning an archbishop status, as early as 544 at the Synod of Mar Abba, according to the Synodicon Orientale. And if there was an archbishop, there would typically be 6 to 12 bishops under them. That would be, archbishops would be appointed only when there was already some significant development of Christianity. There's archaeological evidence supporting early Christianity in Merv. The Karoba Koshuk Church, located near ancient Merv, was in use as early as the 5th century. Inside the church, there was a cross mounted on an arch doorway, but unfortunately the church, largely probably because of political reasons, has never been excavated, just only the surface. Also, and this is significant, there was a mold for the mass production of crosses dated 7th century discovered at this site. And so it points to the significant development of Christianity. Shapur II's tolerance toward Merv Christianity was short-lived. Only 5 years after the appointment of Bar Shaba, he initiated a brutal 40-year persecution from 339 to 379, enforcing Zoroastrianism in the Persian Empire. The Roman-Persian conflicts, which were long-lasting, 680 years total, by this time of the 3rd century, Rome had adopted Christianity, and Persian Christians were accused of being subversive. And so the Persians began to persecute Christianity. Persian persecution subsided under Shapur III, and then who established good relationship with the Patriarch in Constantinople, allowing Christians to expand their faith to the furthest reaches of the Persian Empire. And this policy of tolerance was continued by his son, Bahram IV, in the late 4th century, and his brother Yazgurd I, who succeeded him in 399, when Bahram was killed by the Persian nobility. What's extraordinary is that Yazgurd I convened a council, a church council. He convened the council called the Synod of Isaac in 412, and this council recognized the Persian church as autonomous and the primacy of the Grand Metropolitan at Seleucia Ctesiphon for the region of Persia, Persian realms. But what is significant is that at this council, they adopted formally the Council of Nicaea, the creeds of the Nicene Creed, affirming their orthodoxy. They adopted the creeds of Nicaea in 410 and then later confirmed in 420. And when Catholicos of the Persian realm visited the Roman Emperor Theodosius in 422, a peace treaty was signed, which affirmed religious freedom of Christians in Persia. These accounts are also confirmed by the Book of Tower, by Marty ibn Suleiman, which confirms that Bar Shaba and Shirin spread Christianity throughout Central Asia. Following the death of Bar Shaba and Shapur II, according to this account, Book of Tower, his son Shapur III assumed the Persian throne, and his mother Shirin continued to minister to Christians and build churches. Shirin is distinguished from Shirin, the wife of Khosrow II, later in the late 6th, early 7th century. The latter also was Christian and built numerous churches, furnishing them with imported Bibles. And she may have been named after Shirin of Merv in commemoration of this Christian royal from Merv, who had already been commemorated as early as 200 years later. Now, what does this have to do with Kazakhstan? What is interesting is that 3 gravestones in this Ilibalyk discovery in East Kazakhstan bear names. 2 of the names are Bar Shaba and 1 is Shirin. These names have no affiliation to Turkic language. Bar Shaba is a Syriac name, son of deportation. It can be none other than a commemoration, maybe ecclesiastical name of a bishop who was named after and in honor of Bar Shaba. Why? And we find this in an excavation in East Kazakhstan as well as Shirin. This is extraordinary. Now, Shirin did work its way into popularity in the Turkic culture, but probably related to this. So the Ilibalyk stone, this is it again. It has a Syriac script, but it's Turkic language. And Mark Dickens's translation, Bar Shaba Kush, son Tilis, son Petros, the priest, year of the monkey. In addition to the Ilibalyk stele, Ushra Ilibalyk stele, is the priest stone. These stones are both dated 13th and 14th century speculatively because the cultural material around it, numismatics and other things, suggest 13th, 14th century. But it's unsure because there's still ambiguity. This city, Ilibalyk, the earliest reference historically is 8th century, so there's no way of telling the actual dates. The priest stone also gives two names, and it's also grave of Barshaba Kush, grave of Yosemite the priest, two priests. And then finally the Shirin stone, and it simply says this is the grave of Shirin the believer. And it represents perhaps a commemoration of Shirin, Shapur II's wife, who spread Christianity throughout Khorasan. It's unsure. These terracotta tiles are found in numerous archaeological sites and may possibly be associated with Christianity in Kazakhstan. It is noteworthy that the iconography of this motif matches that on the mass production stone for the manufacture of crosses that was found in Mari in Merv. Pavel Louvre observes that these motifs with cross-shaped indentations on terracotta facades are observed at Aktabe of Shas, modern-day Tashkent, Akbashim in northern Kyrgyzstan, and Taraz, as well as the palace of Kakaka in Shakhristan in modern Tajikistan. The Soviet archaeologist Kizlyazov acknowledged this uniformity and suggested it is because of represented a unified Turkic state. If a Christian identification of this motif is correct, Kizlyazov's assumption inadvertently proposes a Christian religious identity among the Western Turks, as exhibited in iconography. You can see that it matches this sample of West Syriac cross found at the Christian monastery of Tur Abdin. Very similar, and it's hard to discount a possible relationship. This iconography we're finding in excavations in Central Asia with Western Syriac Christianity. As far as historical accounts, I'll just do a brief summary. The earliest account of conversion of Turks in the east, in what is today Kazakhstan territories, the conversion of the Hephthalites. In 496, the Persian king Kavad was exiled and fled to Heptalite realms. It is uncertain the exact location of the Heptalite realms. According to the Jacobite author in 555 writing, Kavad was accompanied by two East Syriac Christians, John Reshiana and Thomas the Tanner. They were joined by Kura Dusat, bishop of Erin, along with 4 priests. The two, John of Reshiana and Thomas the Tanner, worked with the Hephthalites for 30 years, evangelizing, baptizing, and created for them the first written language of the Hephthalites. And they were later joined by an Armenian bishop who taught the Christian Turks to plant vegetables. The mission was so successful that they requested a bishop, and the bishop was appointed to the Hephthalites in 549. Even though the source refers to the Heptalite Empire, it's a territory, it's a rule, but they repeatedly refer to Turks. It was Turkic populations. It was only 3 years after the bishop appointment to the Hephthalites in 549 that Buman would lead the revolt of the Turks against the Avars in 552, which led to the eventual creation of the Eastern and Western Turkic Gagkhanate, collectively known as the Gokturk Empire. Buman's younger brother Ishtami ruled out of Talas. He had also a summer dwelling in Zhetysu, north of Karashar and Kuchka, in the vicinity of Karakaba, which the National Museum has some finds there. And interestingly, 13 years later, after the birth of the Gokturk Empire, Kavad's son and successor Khosrow I married the Christian daughter of the Western Turkic Khaganate, Ishtami, to seal an alliance to defeat the Hephthalites in the Talas Valley region in 565. This is substantiated by Khosrow's the sons. Hormuzd IV was called Turksad, and due to the fact that his Christian mother was the daughter of the Turkic Khan Ishtami. The very first Turkic Khan had a daughter who was Christian. How did she become a Christian? How did Christianity reach her? It points to the Hephthalites. It points to the earlier conversion of Turkic tribes based out of Talas. That's a strong possibility. Second account is Elias was an archbishop at Merv, and in the early 7th century, he encountered a Turkic army going to war, persuaded them to convert to Christianity. The Turkic king called his shamans, and they raised the Yad stone and called for a storm and said, if your God can do better than this, we'll believe and be baptized. And according to the accounts of the Chronicle Menorah, Elias raised a cross, and the storm quickly dissipated, and the Turkic tribe was converted and was baptized. There's no certain identification of this, but this happened in the early 7th century. And the Karluks. In 781, the Eastern Turk Church Patriarch Timothy I in Baghdad recorded the conversion of the king of the Turks and nearly all of the inhabitants of his country becoming Christians. And they created an archbishop. The consensus of scholarly opinion, including by Pakov, Nikitin, Klashtorny, Dickens, and myself, and other authors, is that this Turkic king corresponds to the Karluks. And the Karluks were based out of in Suyab in modern Akbashim, but also later in Taraz. Ancient Talas served as the capital of the Karluk Kipchak cultural space. And finally, the conversion of the Kare in the 11th century, according to the Chronicon Syriacum. The Naiman were Christians, and the Kare had 200,000 baptized Christians in the year 1009. And this is from a Muslim writer, Rashid Hamoudani, who in 1430 actually records the crucifixion of the Kare king Marcus at the hands of the Chinese, nailing him to a wooden donkey to mock his Christian faith. Kulan, and you can find this featured at the Astana National Museum. This is a carved panel clay dated 7th and 8th century. 7th and 8th century. Kulan was a Karluk city located 122 kilometers east of Talas, capital of the Karluk cultural space, and 39 kilometers west of Merki, also a Karluk city. And it features different iconography that was basically pointing to Christianity. It's the Kazakh Kakar steles would have crosses, leaning palmettas, bunches of grapes, and the allegory is basically the vineyard is the beginning of life, which bears the teachings of Christ, symbolizing, a new life. If you look at this clay panel and you compare it to Armenian Kachkars, which are Christian, you can see on the lower part of the full picture this very similar iconography, very similar to the one that we find at Kulan. And this is the inner part of that symbol. It very much resembles the cross designs that we find in other cross representations. For example, this one from the Basilica of St. John at Ephesus, very similar to Western Christianity. This is found at Otrar. Plate was discovered here. And if you compare the three of them together, it begs the question, are they somehow related? Is the iconography similar? Carpini Catholic mission to Central Asia in the 13th century, records significant Christian populations in Otrar. He specifically mentions the Khazars. In Kuzlorda, a very interesting discovery. First of all, this is a canonical wafer box for Christian communion. It's manufactured in France and Le Mans in the mid-13th century. And this was discovered in Friesland in Northern Europe. In Kuzlorda, they found this in an archaeological excavation. Very similar. It's got the Christogram in Latin, as you see, the three letters representing Christ, the Fluidius, which represents and commemorates Maria, and crosses underneath the Christogram. You can very vaguely see in this photograph, unfortunately, but it's a match, and it confirms the accounts of Carpini, Rubric, who were in the region spreading Christianity. What is interesting, where this was found was Barchakent. Barchakent was a significant city, and according to the Nasibnama accounts, which correspond to the rise of the Islamic Karakhanid Empire, this was a Christian city, had a Christian king named Kulich Khan, son of Sarik Todluk Khan Oshtumish, and according to the Nasibnama accounts, Arabic accounts written from a Muslim perspective, Abdul al-Jalir's army approached the city and forced them to convert to Islam, or war would happen, and war resulted, and it resulted in the death of 8,000 Christians before Barchakent converted to Islam. That is the site that this was discovered, perhaps a re-engagement 200 years later after this battle occurred. Interesting from these same accounts, if these accounts can be considered credible historical documents, these accounts refer to Sairam, the ancient lost city that's between Taraz and Shymkent, as a city of having a population of 260,000 people, and they were all Christians, according to these documents. This begs the question of a possibility of a critical reassessment of just to what extent Christianity might have been in a region. We don't know for certain, but this is a great opportunity for Kazakhstan to uncover not just Christianity, but the fact that there was great cultural development, great iconography, great works that were developed. And anywhere there were Christian churches, there were typically monasteries. Monasteries were centers of learning. They had libraries. They translated classical Greek into local languages. The caliphates employed Syriac or Nestorian Christians to be their translators, to bring Hebrew and Syriac and ancient Greek works into Arabic language. This is at Keter, the regional capital. We're 3 kilometers west of Otrar. They found this 7th century. This is at Shymkent Museum. It's Turkul Tubi. Baipakov believed this to be a communion wafer or a communion vessel for wine. This is uncertain, but this is what Baipakov believed. And in north of Taraz, by 10 kilometers in Kostubi, this medieval or 5th to 8th centuries dated is this cross. That's the oldest cross found in Kazakhstan. Taraz has numerous Christian finds have been uncovered. These crosses dated 8th century, and various cross representations in the Talas Valley. This lamp, which was part of the lamp dated 10th, early 11th century, also based out of Taraz, ancient Talas. This is a terracotta fragment, which Baipakov believed to be a Christian ossuary. You can see 3 figures dressed in Persian dress, interestingly. You can see 3 sets of feet on top, and across in the middle, Syriac script is there, confirming it to be Christian. On the far left, you can see what's left of the cross. Interesting, it's been destroyed. It's interesting. But this is by far the most extraordinary find in Kazakhstan. The Grigorskoye dish, was actually discovered in Russia, but it was manufactured in the Taraz region. Darkovich, Nikitin, Sirminov, Maipakov, Ternovaya, Zheleznikov, numerous scholars analyzing the iconography of it come to the conclusion that this was definitely based out of the Taraz Chu interfluve. On this, it has in Syriac script descriptions of Christ on the lower right corner being crucified with the thieves, 2 thieves on his side, and his burial on the left lower, and the resurrection above. And again, Syriac script describing this scene. This is extraordinary that something like this would be manufactured, dated 8th, 9th century in South Kazakhstan. This kind of artistry is contemporary to the quality of artistry of Europe at this time. This is amazing that there could be such extraordinary art and expression in our territory at this time. And I agree with Minister Sayasat's assessment that this is an overlooked chapter of history of Kazakhstan, and it's time for Kazakhstan to be bold and open it up. This is a map. These red dots in Kazakhstan are all of the sites that the finds of the publication are located, and some of the ones in blue, it shows the route. I just picked key ones. And these photographs that I showed are a very small sampling. The publication of our research project features over 200 photographs and much more finds, and judge for yourself. But this is a close-up view of the Sirdar region where Christianity has been found, the locations, and East Kazakhstan along the Talas and Ili and Chu rivers. Traces of this lost chapter of Christianity in Kazakhstan are still found in our cultural expressions. You can see that the cross in the center, the very center, the small cross, it matches the iconography of Christian crosses. And this is called a tree of life in Christian iconography. From the cross stems a new life. And it's through Christ and his sacrifice that people can have the opportunity to have a new life. This iconography was common in West Syriac and even Byzantine Christianity and East Roman Christianity. And we find this even today as a footprint of a lost history. This is a new day for Kazakhstan. Peter Golden, the prominent Central Asian scholar, described this field of Eastern Christianity is one of the, quote, most overlooked and least developed research topics of Central Asian history. And I would encourage Kazakhstan to take a bold step and Nazarbayev University to take a bold step forward to bring out this loss. The whole purpose of research is to bring something new and unexplored. And this is a gold mine of research. I represent a team of many people, and I encourage you to be a part as well. What can we do to bring out this lost history of Kazakhstan? Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Hello? No, it's working. Thanks very much, Kevin. We can take some questions now. I would just like to begin with a comment and a question of my own. So, the Christian communities that you are studying here are, of course, of the Syriac Church of the East. And what I teach in my courses on religion about this branch of Christianity is that it is unique in that it was never a majority. It was the most widespread geographically of all of the branches of Christianity, but was never sponsored by a particular empire. It was never dominant. And so the presence of the Church of the East is really evidence of religious toleration. And so the presence of a Syriac Christianity on this territory is evidence of this long-standing tradition of of religious toleration that is quite characteristic of Kazakhstan and of Central Asia. Now, we have known about the presence of this form of Christianity here for a long time. I know from reading 19th century journals that it was known, but your research has revealed maybe the extent that was not previously recognized using GIS mapping. And I would like to ask you, Kevin, where do you think, what is the next step? What opportunities for further research are there possibly for our graduate students here?
Well, I think the first step is we need to take bold steps to create faculty chairs, departments, research centers, and to recruit students to come and do research in this topic. When I was at the Academy of Sciences with the Department of Nestorian Studies, I had people contact me by email, say, could you supervise me for a PhD in this field? Wanted to come to Kazakhstan to do it. We weren't set up for that, and I wasn't qualified for that at that time. I didn't have my PhD. I just got it 2 years ago. So first of all, to create infrastructure to facilitate research and development of this field. I completely agree about the policies of tolerance. In Kazakhstan, this is its strength. It has over 100 nationalities, ethnicities in Kazakhstan. And Monkey Khan, Genghis Khan's son, talked about just as the hand has 5 fingers, each person has freedom to their path to God. And that's the strength of tolerance, to allow everybody the freedom to choose for themselves what they believe. We're all in this process of seeking what is truth, but everybody needs to have that freedom to do so, and there has to be tolerance of it. The shift in Persia is extraordinary because Shapur II instituted a brutal persecution, but then it was later in Yazgird himself. It was a total turnaround where Yazgird I convened a Christian synod. So I would say the next step is to create departments, create an infrastructure to develop research and development of this field. Again, in research, you look for original contribution to the body of knowledge. Original contributions. This is extraordinary. This lost history, as Peter Golden says, one of the most overlooked and underdeveloped research topics of Central Asian history. That would be the first step. Business people, government officials, all of us need to work together to create such an infrastructure for this topic.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Dr. Babin?
Kevin, thank you very much for this. It's really fascinating. Thank you very much, Kevin. Very fascinating presentation, as always, from you. I have one comment and then 2 questions, if you will permit me.
Sure.
First, just a brief comment about these Nasabnama materials that you mentioned related to the Karahanid period. I've worked a bit with these as well. My own interpretation of these is that these are highly embellished hagiographical accounts. And I would suggest we need to be very cautious about sort of taking them at face value in terms of what can tell us about the history of Central Asia in the 8th century, because these conquests that are being described in it, there is no record of these in any contemporary accounts. I think what we're seeing here, the kind of anti-Christian rhetoric there, is actually more representative of the post-Mongol period when these accounts are being written down, where we do see, as you know, there's a sort of anti-Christian backlash that occurs in Central Asia in the 13th and 14th century. But we can discuss this further if you like. My first question is related to this image, actually, you have up here, which you were suggesting may be inspired by a cross or Christian iconography. As you know, there's a widespread motif within Inter-Asian Turkic mythology of the 4 cardinal directions, the symbol of the tree of life. And I'm wondering what it is about this image that you see as specifically Christian, because one could argue this is reflecting more broadly Turkic mythology, in Inter-Asian mythology. So I'd like to hear more about what the possible, if we can really show a direct Christian influence here. And my other question is a bit broader. In discussing your archaeological evidence, naturally it's very focused on the region of southern Kazakhstan and along river valleys and sedentary environments. We do know from some of the textual accounts that you discussed that we have Christian missionaries active among nomadic communities as well. But I'm wondering do we have any archaeological, any material culture evidence attesting to Christianity within a nomadic environment?
Good questions. First of all, yeah, the Nasibnamas are questionable accounts. It's hard to say, but we do find Christian finds at these sites. So there was Christianity there. Some things are unrefutably Christian. Did the Islamization come and wipe them out? There's no other not much corroboration that this occurred, but we do see the results that suggest the possibility of it. Some of the Soviet authors believed it. Bypakov was one, Zheleznikov as well, but that's unsure. As far as the iconography, Kurdishkin talks about how the Krino cross stems from an earlier representation of Central Asian culture, basically. The sprouts represented fertility in pre-Christian eras. However, this Christian iconography called the Krino cross was adapted by the Church of the East. That's a possibility. It is curious, though, that it does match very similarly some of the actual finds that are definitely Christian and Christian sites that have the same iconography. I don't make a conclusion. I mean, I took that picture at Navad, but this is just a picture of a carpet demonstrating how that all over our culture we have these kinds of symbology. Is it possible that it is representative of a previous history? That's a question, yeah. As far as the archaeological finds among nomads, I don't know the answer to that one. The places that Christianity is found is where settlements were. So these are sedentary cities, small cities. So that's a good question. Good question. I don't know the answer to that one. I'm not aware of any nomadic expressions of Christian finds. It seems to be all in cities.
Any other questions?
I just wonder who published that book? Which publishing house?
Gorgias Press. Gorgias Press is out of New Jersey. They have lots of different genres, but I was really fortunate to be published by them. They're a very prominent publisher.
Is it within a series or?
Yes, it is. It's in the Syriac study series. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Book number 78, number 74. They published a lot in Syriac studies. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So, in your presentation, you mentioned Keres and Naimans, who were prominent among the current Kazakh Orda Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other Jews that were mentioned by, let's say, Marco Polo or other travelers from the West that mentioned about these sort of Christian believing tribes?
Yes, and in my research, the Merki was mentioned, and then of course the Kipchaks, Karluk. If the account of related to the appointment of an archbishop to the Turks is the Karluks, which by Paco, Nikitin, and most scholars have decided, which I completely agree with as well. then this would be the entire Karluk-Kipchak culture, which extended from out to the Aral Sea, all the way east into China, up to Koilik, all over. So this would have been a cultural space, various tribes, but it specifically says that the king and practically all of his inhabitants converted to Christianity. Merki, we find a Christian monastery. You go to Merki in this earthen, they never really excavated into it very far. It was a very short excavation, but Merki, it was known to be a Christian site, a monastery. I think Akbashim is extraordinary. The Akbashim site, they've only dug into the 3rd floor. There's a 3-floor structure. And so there's just lots of questions. There's where we need to create a research base to be able to develop this and to look into these questions. And young scholars at Nazarbayev University and other universities could dive into these questions, you know. This is just maybe some of the groundwork for this research. There are a lot of questions, and so that's all the more reason that we should create an infrastructure to facilitate research and development in this field so we can answer those questions, yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for your excellent job. As a Franciscan friar, I'm interested in any traces of Franciscan presence survived here. You already mentioned Carpini, Monte Corvino, there are many others, also Richard from Burgundia. Anyway, I know this are the medieval time, and you speak about pre-Islamic, most of all you spoke about pre-Islamic times. Anyway, did you meet any Franciscan symbolism, Franciscan teaching signs? That's my question.
I personally have not. I have read Rubric and Carpini's accounts and other accounts that refer to them. And they actually, Rubric's account is very foundational to what modern scholarship uses. He provided a lot of information on Central Asian social religious geography. And so, yeah, that's a good question. On that topic, again, going back to the need for development, there's probably lots of accounts preserved somewhere in these libraries. Baipakov describes Taraz as having, according to his estimation, 4 monasteries. Sairam, he discovered a monastery. Kizlazov identified it as Buddhism. Baipakov countered and corrected him, saying that this is a Christian monastery, most likely. Zaleznikov and others, Makieva also concur. Ochar reportedly has the 2nd largest library in the world behind Alexandria, Egypt, which was burned by fire by the Romans. Sedik Akobek, the prominent archaeologist in Ochar, is convinced it's there. I believe it's there. I write about it in the book. There's lots of very open, about this. It could be a strong possibility, but because there's actually a list of its holdings in a medieval document, and there's other archaeological things, and you'd have to read it in the publication. But there's a lot of questions on that that are unknown. I personally have only read Rubric and Carpini's accounts, and yeah, I didn't go too deep and further into the Franciscans, but did acknowledge them because their works were pivotal in our understanding of modern Central Asian studies. So, yeah. In the back?
Sorry, I can just be loud too. So I am absolutely not a historian, and so I do not know, but kind of trying to get an idea for like what the people were like in these ancient cities. Like you mentioned the Turkic inscription, and then there's Persian sources, and then and Syriac, of course, is a separate language. So who exactly were these people? Were these speaking day to day in Turkic, or Persian, or Syriac? Do we have any idea from like the archaeological evidence and maybe even the written sources?
That might be a question for Dr. Babin, but I would say that, okay, from my understanding and research, that the script is Syriac because similar to the Russians, Cyrus and Kirill brought the Cyrillic script to teach the Slavs Christianity. Similarly, in Central Asia, Barthold wrote about this, how that it was the Syriac missionaries who brought Syriac script. The Sogdians adopted it and deviated it, or it adapted it. That was then passed on to the Uyghurs and then to the Mongols, and it later became basically the foundational linguistic root of the Karluk-Kipchak language upon which Kazakh is based. It was Christian missionaries. Barthold says there's no doubt of this, that it was Christianity had a role in bringing literacy. If the accounts of the conversion of the Hephthalites is correct, then it was Thomas of Tanner and John Resciana who created an early script, similar to Kirill and Methodius. So again, there's lots of questions on this topic. Yeah.
A lot of the iconography on that is kind of got Christian, Jewish, and Muslim. What do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, Zheleznikov wrote about that. The monument Ashbibi, which is near Ochar, it is synchronized and has many different expressions. Zheleznikov describes the Christian iconography that is in that Muslim monument. He describes it as a footprint of previous Christian presence, and some of the iconography was adapted into Islam as well. Similar to the four-leaf lotus, or the four-leaf expression of Christianity, it actually stems from much earlier expressions where you have a Rosetta, for example, and so Christianity later adapted it. But yeah, that's the number one monument really for Kazakhstan iconography is Ashbibi. But it captures that Kazakhstan does have a very rich history and intertwined with multiple expressions of religions, ethnicities, and Kazakhstan can celebrate that to the world, really, show an example to the world of multicultural tolerance and how everybody's, brothers and sisters.
If I could just respond a little bit to the previous two questions. I would say, first of all, that I don't think people were speaking Syriac on a day-to-day basis. I think it was the liturgical language. So these are most likely Turkic peoples who, if they are Christian, are using Syriac as a liturgical language. And the combination, what is the term? The borrowing from one another of symbols among different Abrahamic religions is always a very sensitive topic, because Abrahamic religions do not like to admit that such things are happening. But I was a student at Georgetown University, and there was a replica of the stele, the Syriac stele discovered in China there by the Jesuits. Georgetown being a Jesuit university, they had it there, and it's a fascinating relic of Christian iconography. You have a cross coming up from a lotus and surrounded by Taoist imagery. So you have Buddhism, Taoism, and Christianity together, Syriac script and Chinese characters all together, and so. Syriac Christianity is, I think, where you see that kind of borrowing of different symbols most prominently, because it always, as I said, existed as a minority religion everywhere that it was.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for this book. It's very useful for Central Asia and Kazakhstan. I have several questions. So what do you know about the book Codex Cumanicus? Because there are a lot of opinion about this book that some of them, they said like this is a Catholic's missionaries book. Some of them said like this is a Kipchak's tribes book. So what do you know about? And second question, so in what centuries the Christianity was well developed in Kazakhstan? Was the period? And also, in what century Christianity was started to fade away in our steppes? And then next question, so in what population, settled or nomadic population, the Christianity was adhered to this phase? Okay, that's all.
Okay, I'll try to remember those. First of all, about the Codex Cumanicus, it is relates to the Kipchak history. It's recognized to be a fairly credible document. I have not read it at full length. It's written in a language that I can't read. I haven't seen an English version yet. Maybe it exists. If anybody knows of an English version, please send it to me.
One of our graduate students is working on this very document now, so I can put you in touch with him.
It's a very important document because it does capture. It's one of the best early history Kazakhstan territory documents. Your second question was?
What centuries the period of the Christianity was developed in Kazakhstan?
Okay, so so archaeologically, 6th century is the earliest confirmed archaeological finds. Then the question is, according to sources, if Barshaba's account is credible, which I believe it is, and others as well, the Barshaba account talks of Christianity being spread throughout, and it's hard to discount the name Barshaba, Shirin being discovered in Kazakhstan territory, but the extent of Christianity suggests that Merv played a very important role in the spread of Christianity. So if that's true, we're talking 4th century, early 4th century. If the Mengana document is correct, then we got Christianity as early as the 2nd century. If a guy did in fact convert Gog and Magog, which corresponds in Turkish or Syriac literature to the early Turks and Tatars. So then you got early 2nd, but we have no clear indication of that. Archaeologically, it's questionable, but in Turkestan, the oldest part of Turkestan, it was a Sogdian city. They found a cross-shaped structure, which the Soviet writer, I can't remember which one it was, but she describes it as resembling a Christian church or martyrium. It matched the architecture, but she concluded it was something else because she couldn't fathom it being a Christian church, but she did write that's worth exploring because it's at that site at Kol Tubi that they found the oldest Sogdian script in the world. I'm sorry, yeah, the earliest Turkic. No, it was Sogdian. Nicholas Sims Williams talked about that. Christianity flourished. Its golden era, and I called it in my subchapter, the golden era of Christianity was 7th to 8th century. The conversion of the Karluk Kipchak cultural space, 9th up to the 9th, 7th to 9th. And that's when some of the best iconography, some of the best works, expression that may be related to Christianity. And it disappeared largely. Persecution had a role in it, but it started with the Karakanid conversion to Islam of the regions. Whether it happened forcibly or whether it happened voluntarily, that's debatable, but it started to disappear at that time. Mongols actually implemented a religious tolerance policy, and so you find the Kare wives of Mongol, the sons of Genghis Khan. Several of them were like Sorkaktani Beka and Dokuz Katan were Christians. And Tulu's wife, Dokuz Katan. So it ended really probably by the time of the Timurids. And by that time, there's not much record of Christianity until later engagement by Russian Orthodoxy. So that's, Dr. Scarborough could answer on that maybe as well.
Well, Eastern Orthodoxy, of course, came rather late to the region in the 18th century, we could say. But the Orthodox Church was aware of the earlier history of Syriac and Armenian Christianity here, and that's the beginning, really, of scholarship on it.
In the Chu Valley, actually, there's a bishop's gravestone dated very early. I think it's 7th century, but it's written in Armenian and Syriac, and it's the bishop of in the Chu Valley in Pishpek, which is north of modern-day Bishkek, where Pantusov found 611 Christian gravestones at that site. It's just over the Kazakhstan border towards Bishkek.
If I could ask one more question, Kevin, you mentioned this similarities that you see with Armenian iconography and some clay panels on the territory of Kazakhstan. So the earliest forms of Christianity here were the Syriac Church of the East and Armenian. Do you think that there was some sort of mutual influence there? Do you think that there was, or is there any evidence beyond these isolated archaeological finds of communication between Armenians and Syriac Christians?
Yes, that's what happened with the Hephthalites. As mentioned, so the John Reshiana and Thomas the Tanner were accompanied by four priests, but it mentions Kurasat. He was a Monophysite, and then the Armenian bishop came and helped teach them to plant corn. And so there was this interfaith or interdenominational dialogue between Armenian Christianity. And in fact, in Kyrgyzstan, the Chu Valley, to see an Armenian bishop and surrounded by Syriac Christian gravestones, it shows that there was definitely cooperation, definitely in the Hephthalites. And this would have been, again, 5th century Turkic tribes.
Any other questions? Oh.
I am close without it. I am ambassador of Lebanon, and in my country, the principal Christian community is the Maronite community. And the Maronites are Syriac Catholic. And the founder, Saint Maron, was in Antiochia, in Turkey, and from Turkey to Syria and to Lebanon. But my question, since the Convention of Nicaea in Turkey, where the Holy Pope visited last time, so the Nestorians were persecuted, and the new, the Church has adopted the Trinity. So the Nestorian community was reduced during times. So now the Khan persecuted or crucified, I don't know, in Central Asia at the year 1040, at the 11th century. He has been crucified. It means it was a Nestorian community in Central Asia at the 11th century. Yes. It's strange to find such community in Central Asia, because even in the Middle East, very few are the Nestorian. At Nestorian, as we knew, are the sect or Christian who believe in one nature of the Holy Christ, only the human nature. So how to find in Central Asia, the 11th century, a Nestorian community?
Well, this goes back to the question of the term Nestorian. It's to give a backdrop. Eusebius is our main foundation for church history of early church history. But Sebastian Brock describes how that Eusebius, it was outside his realm of expertise to write about Eastern Christianity. That's one thing. We don't have a lot of information that was built upon. Secondly, the rift doctrinally within the church, that where the Eastern Church and Western Church separated, it had to do with, it's a complex question in and of itself, but it was also political because the Persian-Roman Wars, Persian Christians were accused of being aligned with Roman, and they were at war with each other. And so the Persian church wanted to separate. The Western church disparagingly called them Nestorians. But Dietmar Winkler has written on that Nestorian was not Nestorius, Archbishop of, he was at Antioch and then Constantinople too. He was completely Orthodox. He wasn't a Nestorian in that sense. But doctrinally, it's settled at the Synod of Zhetysu and the subsequent one in 420 that the Church of the East adopted the Nicene Creed. So the church was completely Orthodox. Even though they were labeled Nestorian as though they were heretics, they weren't heretics. They adopted the same Nicene Creed. And so it was a term used by Westerners to describe those who separated themselves for political reasons. And so I hope that sheds light on your question. But there were certainly, it's a tough, remember, these terminologies were created by Western scholars to define Christianity in Central Asia. These were Christian people. They were native Turkic people who, through the influence of people who came into the region, who knows when, the first one, maybe a guy in the 2nd century, maybe, if it's true. But the Nestorians were called Nestorians. It's still to this day by the Soviets, academia, and Chinese call it Nestorians. In the West, they call it Syriac. Why Syriac? Just because they use the language, the script of Syriac. So they need to call it Turkic Christianity because these are Turks. Yeah.
Can I just add to that? So, sir, you're referring to the one nature of Christ among the Syriac Christians. So this is what is sometimes referred to as the Oriental Orthodox Syriac Church, who are Miaphysite, one nature. The Christians who are in this region are actually considered Diophysite, which is they both use this Syriac liturgical language, which is, of course, a dialect of Aramaic, the language Christ would have spoken. And there is a third branch of Syriac Christians in your country, of the Eastern Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch. So there are 3 different denominations of Christians who use the Syriac script originating from your country, the territory of your country. But the ones who were in the territory of Kazakhstan would have been the earliest group that broke off, who are referred to as Diophysite, meaning they believe in 2 natures of Christ that are more separate than what the Orthodox Church accepts today. Yes, maybe we should conclude. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, and we'll now cut the ribbon. Yes.
So, in our final thing, on the behalf of the University of Salzburg and Central Asian Center for Syriac Studies, our local representation, we would like to dedicate this book to Nazarbayev University in hopes that it will spur research and development of this field among your young scholars. And I would recommend that we all continue to dialogue and do what we can to develop this lost, overlooked aspect of Central Asian history, because it's extraordinary. Kazakhstan really ought to open this, because you're not going to find just Christianity. You're going to find great cultural, civic infrastructure, all kinds of development, art, science, medicine. These are things that the Christian communities were very involved in. And so I hope that this research project will help in this way, and any way I can be of service as well. Please get a flyer if you're interested in getting a 40% discount to have a look. Again, this has over 200 pictures and all kinds, lots more archaeological evidence to discuss. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you should cut this. Well, thank you for this presentation, inspirational presentation, and it was a pleasure to host you. Thank you for this book donation. This is a great contribution to our library collection, which will be available soon, and our researchers, students, and faculty will benefit from it. And we wish you good luck in your future endeavors, and we hope for future collaboration with you. Yeah, good luck, and thank you again for this book donation.
Thank you. So, there you go.